What's up? It's Lip Service. I'm Angela Yee.
I'm Gigi McGuire.
I'm Stephanie Santiago.
I'm Laura Mora.
Oh, and I'm Gia Casey.
First of all, we have Gia Casey. This is her first time on Lip Service.
Yes, thank you for having me.
I specifically told Envy to stay home because I wanted to just have Gia on without him. Because, you know, we make fun of him at work all the time about different things that have happened to him, the, you know, vibrant dildo situation and all of that.
I've heard. Yes, well aware.
But you guys have a book out now, Real Life, Real Love.
Yes.
Which is, by the way, an amazing read. I'm not going to lie, early on I cried.
Oh,
I did, because, you know, I'm sensitive when I read certain things. But, you know, I know you guys have told this story before about your face getting sliced and you getting into where those girls jumped you.
Right.
But reading it, like, in real time and how Envy was supposed to pick you up, but he was working. And then, you know, that part was like... Yeah. I just can't even imagine something like that happening. But then Envy said, you know, after that, things were never the same. But what I love is you said you were stronger after that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Growing up in Queens, Brooklyn, originally from Brooklyn, and then I moved to Queens when I was 14, there was just a lot of things that I felt kept replaying throughout my life. And one of those things was people feeling as though they know who you are before they get to know who you are. They see you as one thing just based on your appearance. And for me, it was people assuming that I was stuck up or bougie or conceited. And I'm the exact opposite.
People will be like, you're actually nice.
Well, yeah, I am nice. But I'm a tomboy. Like, it's just... I went through that my whole life, and I've gotten into fights my entire life. Ever since I was, I think I got into my first fight when I was maybe 12, and constantly, you know.
Never a fight that you initiated.
Oh, God, no.
Right.
No. Never a fight that I initiated, but I became very tough-skinned, very thick-skinned because of misconceptions and whatnot, and just feeling as though I had to, and it also encouraged me to be strong.
Right.
Because I felt like I was always defending myself. Do you know what I mean? And I also grew up with that, you know, like, I didn't want people to feel as though they could take advantage of me or play me. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like, okay, yes.
You go extra the other way.
And that's why, and I could totally relate, you know, been growing up in the city, and the pretty girls, we always know how to fight. Like, don't ever sleep on the pretty girls from New York, because we would look at certain girls and they'd be like, oh, she's looking at us wrong. She's all stuck up. And I will always end up in a fight because I looked at somebody up and down, or because somebody's boyfriend was being too friendly to me. Like, being a pretty girl, you have to be like on a high defense in New York City.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's just, I got into a fight one time when I was a freshman in high school. No, actually, I was a sophomore in high school, and I got on the bus, and this girl just looked at me and then snuffed me in the face.
Wow.
I never met this girl before. Never saw her. We had no affiliation or anything. We got into a fight on the bus.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
It was just you gotta have hands when you're pretty in the city.
It was just the thing, you know what I mean? And I understood what it was at the time, and that was just, you know, it was just my life.
That's perceptive that you understood what it was.
It's hard not to. Because when, you know...
Because it's more their issue than your, you know.
it's
not
all the way there.
I never understood.
their issue with themselves.
But the first thing, if, you know, you get into a situation with somebody, the first thing is, oh, this light-skinned bitch. Or, you know, this piss-colored bitch. Or bleach, Casper. You know, just the joke. So it's not lost on you what's actually going on. You know why there's issues and whatnot. And I'm not even saying that, you know, it's jealousy. Like, I'm not putting those things on, you know, the people that have offended me. I'm just saying that our society, especially at that time, was just
divisive.
It was very divisive. You know what I mean? And that divisiveness was encouraged. So it was a whole societal issue within our culture.
Right.
And part of it, I'm going to be honest, even from the other side of it, and I know it's going to sound strange for me to say, but I even somewhat understand. Just the same way that Black people understand white privilege, as a light-skinned woman, I understood light-skin privilege.
That's true.
It does exist.
Yeah, because like if you see all the music videos or even guys saying, I only like yellow bones or red bones, I only date light-skinned girls. We used to hear that a lot, you know, or people being like, oh, I like mixed girls. The term good hair, and
all of those
exotic
things.
And all of that. And so, yes, it's a fucked up way for people that people think in our society.
I would even put myself in the position of being like a darker complected girl at the time and trying to imagine how that would feel. So not to give permission to it or to say that it's okay, but at the very least, I understood.
Where it came
and that's
from.
kind of how I try to go through life. I don't try to just look at things through my perspective. I try to look at things through everyone involved perspective.
Now, I mean, okay, let's talk about how Envy even got you. Because, or should I say Rashawn?
Yes, Rashawn.
Because he was Rashawn back then.
Yes. Actually, he was DJ Shrimp.
Oh, DJ Shrimp. DJ Shrimp.
Oh my God.
I'm not gonna lie. That's a terrible name, by the way.
Like, who's Rashawn? Oh, that's right.
But I guess when you think about it, DJ Envy is also not like the the connotation. But how he even got you is a really funny story. Right. First, he was kind of in the friend zone, but then you were dating somebody else.
Yes.
And he called on three-way. So can you tell us what he did? Because this is some crazy shit.
So I had moved from Brooklyn to Queens.
Sorry to hear that.
But, you know, I was a true Brooklynite. And then I transferred into Rashawn's school. And I was a new girl in school. So I had options.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
We know
so
that's right.
It's just the nature of it, right? So I was, you know, talking to different people, and I was talking to this kid from Christ the King. So I went to St. Francis Prep, so did Rashawn. And
Christ the King was big in basketball.
Yes.
Your life might have been way different. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, see? Well, I wonder what that kid's doing now.
Where's he? Is he on Facebook?
You know, I never looked him up. But he was on the swim team, and we were talking. And when Rashawn first kicked it to me, not to say that I wasn't interested, but I just had, you know,
Options.
I had options, and I was trying to figure out which
How
way
did
I
he try to
wanted
kick
to
it
go.
to you?
He likes to tell this story. I wish he were here to tell it.
And we're glad he's not.
I used to run. I used to run track, and you know, we would wear these like skimpy little one-piece track outfits and
running
whatnot.
shorts.
And I would, like a little, exactly, little short shorts, little, you know,
And he
whatever.
wore those too.
No, he did. No,
saw
but
a
you know what
picture.
he did wear? Him and I don't know. Do you know Mono, right?
Yeah.
DJ Mono. So they've been friends longer than I've even known Rashawn. Rashawn and I have been together for 27 years. So he's known Mono about 30 years.
I remember they're falling out.
Girl, that's a whole other podcast.
So funny, but go ahead.
Yes. We wore like partial uniforms. So it's kind of like a dress code, but they gave you what pieces you could wear. So they would wear their little slack pants. Rashawn would wear like a pastel pink polo button down with the pink scrunch socks, and Randy would come in on the same day. See, it was a plan, right? Randy would come in on the same day with the lavender pastel button down and the little scrunch socks. And at the time, it was very like swaggy.
Right.
You know what I mean? So he did catch my attention, and I did be like, oh, he's cute. And he's tall.
He'd
like,
be a good friend.
At that point, I was like, oh, I liked him, but he kept trying to give me his telephone number.
Right.
And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to call you. And then he would come to school and next day, like, you didn't call. And I'm like, I was
Thirsty.
busy. I got caught up, you know, whatever. He was like, well, in case you lost it, here it is again. And this went on for some time. And then finally he was like, well, can I have your telephone number? I'll call you since you're like so busy.
Good idea.
So I gave him my number, and then I finally picked up. And then after speaking to him for about like a week, then 2 weeks, I was like, wow, there's really something to this kid. Like, he's so charming and charismatic, and he was very invested.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It wasn't just like chit chat and what
He
you're
was going
doing.
for
And,
it.
like, he was like trying to make me his wife after like 2 weeks, you know? But I still had this other kid on the side.
Right.
That I didn't tell Rashawn about.
Well, really, Rashawn was on the side at that point. Cause
Well, this is true.
Yeah.
This is true. Rashawn was actually my side bitch at
an
the time.
amazing side.
So Rashawn found out, and he found out who the kid was, got his number, called him, and then called me on three-way.
Oh my God.
And was like, yeah, so I heard you talking to so-and-so. And I was like, yeah. He was like, well, he's on the phone.
Why did this guy agree to this?
It's like he's on the phone. So he was like, so right here and now, I'm going to need you to choose. Like, I'm going to need you to pick. It's either me
It's like a reality show.
And he was like, because I don't share.
The ultimatum.
Yes.
On Netflix.
The ultimatum. Yes. And I was like, I got all hot and bothered. I was like, what does it mean? He knows what he loves me. Yes. I was like, I choose you.
Oh my God.
Yes. So then I was like, sorry, Jonathan. So then
I can't believe that worked.
Oh my God.
But hey,
it worked because it was manly. It was assertive. And it's not the type of thing you would have expected from a 16-year-old.
He was consistent.
He was consistent,
Right.
and he's never faltered on that.
Right.
Like that's one thing that he's been invested literally since day one.
Right.
So I like that about him, but I like a man's man. You know, like I like someone that's very manly. And I know on the show you guys joke and play, and you know there's a certain persona associated with that. You know what I mean?
But he can't change a tire.
But no, he can't. He can't put a hole in the wall to hang a picture.
You know what I mean? He can definitely pay somebody that can.
And you know something, that's what he would say.
Yeah.
It's like a man can do that too. Yeah. So I'm like, all right, you know. So
Where there's a will, there's a way. Right?
so I like that about him, you know. And then we started dating, and like we fell in love with each other, like
Quick.
immediately. Like
So let me ask you this. In the time that he was courting you, because you were keeping your options open, were you the only person he was talking to then, or were there like other girls that he was entertaining? I'm just curious.
Oh no, it was just
you.
It was just
he had
me.
tunnel vision.
Yeah, no, it was tunnel vision. It was just me, and he made sure that it was just him. So it was, we were exclusive immediately.
Did your parents like him right away?
Well, the truth is, my father liked him because Rashawn always came across as very, very protective.
Oh.
Well, protective, you know. My mother liked him, but my mother thought that he was too immature for me. So one day I come downstairs, she's like, come in my room. And I go in there and she's like, do you think that maybe he might be a little too immature for you? And I'm like, well, why would you say that? She's like, oh, he just walks into the house and is like, hi, Mrs. Grante. Hi, Mr. Grante. And then he just goes upstairs.
Right.
He doesn't engage in conversation.
Wait, he was allowed upstairs?
Oh, yeah.
then?
My parents were very cool.
I was going to say, because I wasn't allowed to have boys in my room when I was in high school.
I had such a dope relationship with my mother and my father that they knew that if I allowed a boy into my room, that nothing was going to happen.
Were you allowed to have boys in your room?
I was having slumber parties in high school.
I was having summer, but not with boys. Like I had guys over, but they could only be downstairs.
Yeah.
Co-ed slumber parties.
I had a co-ed slumber party when I was in high school
multiple.
too.
And I'm talking about from 10th grade all the way through 12th grade.
So do you allow your kids, like let's say your daughters or sons, like can they have?
I would let them, only because I raised my children the
And
way
the trust
that
is there.
I was raised.
Is there a certain age where you're like it's okay, or just in general?
Well, I just think it's inappropriate before, like maybe like 17.
Okay.
I would trust my kids from the get. But I would say like 17, if a parent of an invitee allows their child to come and sleep over, it's okay with me.
Even
as long
Logan?
as...
No, I'm kidding.
Yes, even Logan.
I'm totally kidding.
No, both of my kids. I would, because I was raised in a very open conversation, communication type of household where there was so much trust, and my parents poured so much into me, and they taught me right from wrong and morals and, all of these things. And they always wanted me to live my best life. They always wanted me to have fun. They always encouraged me to be the best at anything that I attempted to do. They believed in me. So I would never do anything to dishonor them.
Right.
And the proof was in the pudding. Rashawn took my virginity.
Right.
Like I was a virgin.
Did he know what he was doing?
I mean, we both.
It's a safe space. You could be.
I don't have to think about it. Like we both were in the same space regarding that. So I think we were, because he was kind of virgin-ish.
Right.
Yeah. Like we were both extremely
inexperienced.
So you guys were learning together.
So we were learning together.
I bet you that was so fast because he probably was so excited. Like,
he
finally.
wasn't.
Angela always killing him. He always got him.
No, he wasn't though. No, like he was tender, and he took his time, and he was considerate. He was thoughtful. He made a whole situation out of it.
A mixtape.
He asked my permission. He did have a mixtape.
He had a mixtape.
Yes,
that's for the soundtrack.
Minnie Rippleton, loving you.
I
remember that was on it.
That's hilarious.
Yes, it was like
Wow.
a whole. It was at the Marriott Marquis in Times Square. Yes.
So was it
hearing
that.
good
So.
first experiences.
Yes,
because there's so many horror stories. Mine was
terrible.
really good too. No,
Really?
I had a nice one. You know, like you said, I had a guy who was really considerate and gentle, and he made sure everything was really moist
He ate it.
before he tried anything. It was really nice, you know, and slow, and I felt really loved. And you know, some girls have such horrible stories about their first time.
Yes.
My first time was terrible. I hated it.
look at Angela.
Yeah, it was awful. But
We waited a year. We had sex on our 1 year anniversary.
so it was planned. Like, this is the day we're going to do it. I'm
No,
getting a hotel room.
we didn't decide, but I knew that I would not before 1 year. You
Okay.
know, like I had to be in love and I had to be ready. You know, I was 16. I had to be ready.
Did you
And
like
I
watch
was.
porn or like how
At
did
that
you
time,
learn?
no.
How did you learn
I watch
what
a bit
to
of it
do?
now, but not done. What?
We'll talk about that in a second.
We'll get to that.
Did you have to ask anybody like, what am I supposed to do, or do you just went in like?
I just went in like we're two young kids. Like we'll figure it out. It's not that hard.
And
not
at
that
by
hard.
this time,
It's
y'all
not
had
that
been
hard.
together so long, and like you said, you were already in love. So the passion was there, the chemistry was there, and even though y'all didn't know really what y'all was doing, I'm sure y'all like
We
you said,
figured it out.
Did he
We
cry?
figured it out. No.
Oh my God,
Okay.
Angela.
Did he use a condom?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Did you come?
No.
Because you didn't. Okay, yeah, my
No.
first time.
Oh, I didn't.
My first couple of times.
Yeah, my first couple of times I
I think
didn't
like
either.
my first boyfriend, I didn't come. Like I didn't. I
Whole
thought.
relationship?
Wait, what did you say? You
Because
said your
I didn't
friend's
know.
boyfriend?
Well, actually,
Your
my
first-
son's
your
dad.
first
My
boyfriend.
first is my 21-year-old's
I was
dad,
like, what?
and
The plot thickens.
like I didn't know. Like I thought women can only come from
Oral.
I didn't know that while he was pet. So I
okay.
never knew how to
Yes.
come while until you know after.
That's a whole conversation.
Yeah,
Like,
and it's
I
crazy because
believe
he didn't even teach me that. The whole time I was with him, I didn't know.
You just had no idea.
I didn't
Definitely
come for
had
a
an
long time
orgasm in my first sexual experience.
didn't.
I had a
You
guy.
said you did or didn't?
I did because I was getting oral before I actually had actual
Penetration.
intercourse. Yeah, so I was coming from that before I knew what it was. But I didn't come from intercourse the first time I had sex. No.
Right. I also think if you're both kind of inexperienced, he doesn't know how to make you come.
Right.
Of course not.
Right.
I'm
Like,
not going
how
to
would
say
he
how
know?
old
course
the guy I
not.
lost my virginity was.
Of course not. No,
when
I was
lost my
16. He was
virginity.
17. And
That's perfect.
like I said, like I was a virgin. He was virgin-ish. You know, he had attempted with someone, his first girlfriend before, but just never finished.
He told you that like
Yeah.
early. Okay.
Oh yeah, I knew. I knew
Okay.
who the girl was. Like, you know.
Oh my gosh.
That was like
That's
that
why
was
she said virgin-ish.
and that was his
Right.
first girlfriend. You know,
Okay.
but he didn't see it all the way through. You
I've
know?
never heard about his first girlfriend. So you guys all went to school together?
No. She was just a girl from his neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was he still cool with her? Like while he was?
No. He never spoke to her again.
I want to see
Damn.
pictures
He was
of you
like,
guys.
everything. That's it. You're out of
that
here.
was it. Yeah, no, that was it. That was it.
I want to see pictures of you guys in high school. You guys were probably so
It's in the book.
There's some in the book.
I want to
Yeah.
see so
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
N-
there's-
Now, Gia, MV came to work one day devastated because he said that you had told him that you were faking orgasms and pretending. And we actually got you a present.
Okay.
Here you go. It's a T-shirt.
No fake orgasms. Well, luckily, I haven't had to fake an orgasm in about, I'm married 21 years, in about at least maybe 11 years.
Yes,
what made you
that's
even-
progress.
What made you tell him
12
that?
years. Truthfully? Because we were having sex for years, and I was faking like all of my orgasms.
Every single time?
All of the
internal ones.
through intercourse. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, all the
I
ones
was.
and you were like, he was feeling good.
Absolutely.
So you were doing like the
Theatrics and everything.
What? It was a whole performance.
Wow.
Well, let me
I
ask you:
know,
was
girl.
it
We all
because you
been
weren't
through it.
Was it because you guys were going through things during that time in your relationship and you were not mentally?
No, that's not the reason
was
why.
it?
We talk about it in great detail in the book.
In the book.
From my perspective and from his perspective.
Oh, wow.
But it was my fault. It wasn't his fault. You know, as women, we are well, no, as girls, we're raised to think that women are like playthings for men. You know, we are here for the pleasing
for their pleasure
of men. And we're taught that subconsciously when you think about it. Billboards, beautiful women advertising everything, sexy cars with a sexy woman draped across the hood. Even now, Instagram, just everything is built on the back of sex and sexuality and anything relating to sex. And we're kind of programmed that way when you think about it. So when I started having sex, I was acting on that program. You know, I'm thinking that
this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yes, and it also felt good. You know, when you take a test and you get an A, you're like, yes, right? You know what I mean? So when I'm engaging in intimate situations with my boyfriend and my husband, and I'm pleasing him, like, it feels like yes. And you all know, the more you perform, the more excited they get, the more they think that they're putting in, the better the whole experience is, but for the fact that
it's
there's
not
a
really
fake
happening.
orgasm for you at the end. But you're performing, you're thinking about, okay, how do I look? How does my face look? How am I moving?
How I
You're
sound.
taking it all in, like, yes. And then at the end, I would feel like I could just, you know, reach over, grab a cigarette and a lighter. You know, like it felt like that. So it was partially from my ego, and it was also to enhance his ego. And then I was going down a rabbit hole. Do you know what I mean? Because once I started it,
Right. You can't be
I
like,
can't go back and undo
So when
it.
did you get to the
so
point
wait,
where
it's
you're
been
like,
working all this time.
okay, enough is enough. Let me let him know what's going on. Like, what was the turning point for you to be like, let me stop this and let him know that it's really not happening?
So we had gotten into an argument, okay, about something that wasn't even
related.
And
that's
that's when he came to
significant,
work
right?
devastated.
You didn't take out the garbage,
Regular.
but guess what? I don't come.
It kind of went just like that. Wow. You know, it was similar. It wasn't as insignificant as taking out the garbage, but it was something insignificant. And I was frustrated because he had no interest in resolving the problem. And then to put a patch on it, he wanted to have sex with me. Because if I bleep her down, then
She'll shut up.
then
Or
she'll
to
be
make all
happy.
things better.
She'll be happy. You know
Everything will
what
be
I mean?
better.
Right.
Because even though I was faking my orgasms, I enjoyed
Yeah, you can
every
Yeah.
moment of
You
sex.
can
It was
enjoy
the
sex and not
intimacy.
come. You can enjoy
Yeah,
sex
of
and not
course.
come.
It was the intimacy. It was the love. And just sidebar, you know, for women, it's not really, when you have an orgasm, it's not really about the man.
Exactly.
I can have an orgasm if Rashawn's penis was 3 inches. Now, because I know it's about me. It's about the connection. It's about the love. It's about stopping and concentrating on my own body, my own sensations, and being less performative. It's about taking during the sexual experience and not worrying so much about giving. And once I learned to do that, I'm like, oh my gosh,
Right.
I have all this power within myself to control my body and to control the degree to
What's
which I
happening.
enjoy it. I have an orgasm every single time, whether it's oral, whether it's intercourse, it really doesn't matter. And it's because I dictate that. So what I did that day by blurting it out, because I was so upset, I'm like, you just want to glaze over this with sex?
And I'm not even going to come.
I'm like, well, guess what? I've been faking it. He was like,
devastated.
He was like, well, how long have you been faking it? I was like, well, I've never not faked it. And let me tell you, I'm going to be honest with you. That was the absolute worst thing that I could have done in my marriage. It was the worst thing. And it wasn't the honesty that was so terrible. It was the way in which I delivered the honesty.
In the midst of an argument.
In the midst of an argument, it wasn't well thought out. It was harsh. It was insensitive. It was hurtful. It was spiteful. And I used it as a tool.
A weapon.
I did. I weaponized it.
That would make him not
I
get
did that
hard.
before.
Like when you know, because for a guy, his ego.
Yeah.
And I saw in the book you talked about how do you tell somebody they're not good in bed, and you're like, you don't.
You don't. You don't. Why would you destroy somebody like that? No, there are other ways that you can communicate
Right.
to
Focus
get
on the
what you
positives.
want. Yes,
Right.
to make it better, to get to that point without crushing them. Because when you love somebody,
You don't do that.
crush them. And I wasn't loving him right. We in the book, there's a whole section on right fighting. You know, we would argue just to be right.
Yeah, not even
just
over the
to
issue.
win. My goal going into an argument was to annihilate him.
Yeah.
Just so I could be like, told you.
Right.
I was like, I'm right.
And that was the only thing that mattered. Getting to a common ground didn't matter. Resolving the issue didn't matter.
Winning was what mattered.
Being in a safe space, just nothing mattered. As long as I could walk away and like puff my chest out like,
It told you stupid.
dummy.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And that was so misguided, and it was young. It was inexperienced. It was dumb. And that's part of the reason why we wrote the book, because had I had a tool like that then, I would have seen all the flaws in myself.
Right.
And I would have been able to identify the flaws in him, because it was like a tennis match. Like, we were just messing up left and right with each other. I would have been able to identify those things and made some changes. I could have course corrected. But the problem is, a lot of girls, they don't sit down. They don't have a relationship with their mother the same way that I had a relationship with my mother.
Was so fortunate.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of girls are just out there fending for themselves and learning from their friends and talking ish and, you're not getting information from a safe place. We've been through, I feel like, everything.
Y'all okay, let's go back to that. Because in the early days, I had no idea that he was this like ridiculously controlling. Now he talks about an incident where, he was going to DJ and you went to a club, the Armory.
At the Armory.
And then one of his snitching ass friends.
Yep, Lil Sean.
Sean called Envy and was like, Gia's in the club. And he turned around from on the road and came to the club.
Yes.
And found you grinding on somebody because Gia is part Jamaican.
Yes.
And so you was grinding on somebody and he snatched you right up.
Sure did. Not in an abusive way.
He
not
threw
in
you
a
over his shoulder
not like a rag doll.
like a
he treated me
caveman.
like a whole rag doll. Yes. Well, what happened was, Rashawn, ever since day one, he was very, very possessive, controlling, and like obsessive even, Did you
watch the series?
He kind of gives me that vibe about you.
Yes.
I think he still gives me that vibe about you.
he
It hasn't stopped.
He doesn't know, but
I don't think it stopped.
he controls it. Now it's in a constructive way.
I feel like he
Okay,
punches
that's
the wall
good.
sometimes.
It's like he's more so about providing and protecting. It's not about the obsession and
It's
what I mean, the
changed.
controlling, because now he realizes that I love him for him. I truly love him.
Right.
And he couldn't chase me away from him at this point. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So he doesn't have that insecurity that fueled him, because as he says in the book, he was so preoccupied thinking that one day I would meet somebody more fill in the blank than him. As he puts it, more handsome, more charismatic, more intelligent, more this, more that. So for him, he felt as though he just wanted to keep me like Rapunzel in the tower. Like, I don't want you going out. I don't want you hanging out with your friends.
Right.
I don't want you wearing anything that shows your cleavage. I don't want you. Do you know what I mean?
I don't want you to work anymore. He
I
didn't
don't
even
want you to work.
anymore.
I went through
He
the same thing.
literally did not want me out in public unless I was out with him.
With him?
And
Oh,
where that halfway flew for me was the fact that I truly loved being with him. When we were in high school, and as it speaks to that day that he wasn't there when I was attacked, we were together every day after school, like every single day. Every day, not one day, except that day, were we not together. We left school together. We got something to eat. We went and did something fun. And before the end of the evening, he dropped me home back at my mom's.
It's like a real love story.
Like, we were together. Even in college, we were together every single day. I was at ODU. He was at Hampton. Every day after his last class, he would come and pick me up after my last class, bring me back to Hampton. I slept at his house. Then he brought me back to ODU in the morning before my first class.
Right.
And then we did that every single day until I replaced my car, because I got into an accident, which is why he had to come and pick me up. But we genuinely enjoyed spending all of our time together. So for me, it wasn't as alarming. I didn't feel as though I was in a vice. I didn't feel like, oh my gosh, I just can't breathe. I just want to do this. I just wanted to spend time with him.
Yeah.
Like, he was my best friend.
But, okay, so let's talk about that day, because you did go to the club and told them you weren't. So what was going on that day?
That day, he was doing a club at Virginia State. So again, we're in Hampton, right? And he got hired to do a club in Virginia State. I couldn't fit in the car because it would always be me and all of his friends. I was always there. It would be like 10 dudes and me. But I couldn't fit in the car, obviously. And he needed, guys, security type thing, his friends and whatnot. So I couldn't go. So it was a college party at the Armory. And he was like, yeah, you're not going to that party, right? And I was like, yeah, but I am going to the party. So like, what's going to happen?
Girls' night out.
He was like, no, you're not going. And it turned into this big argument. So finally I was like, all right, I'm not going to go.
But I am.
But just
no social media.
To end the argument.
Yes. So he gets on the road. And then little Sean, who is like family to us, but it started.
I would have been so mad at him, honestly.
But yes. And he's like my homie too.
Little
like,
Sean, what the fuck?
He stabbed me in the back. So I go with all my girls. I drove and I'm there. And yeah, like they were playing dance hall and I was dancing with this dude.
Oh, you was dancing.
Yes.
You was
dancing. Explain how you were dancing.
I mean, like Brooklyn basement party type dancing.
I already know you had to lean against the wall.
Like I used to like with my feet on the wall. I used to have to whine on my head. Like I could do. I would do that. Like that would happen
on your head.
But that was the thing.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like that's what
Did you know the guy?
Apartments in Evansfield.
We were familiar with each other.
Okay.
Yes, I knew who he was. He knew who I was, but we weren't like cool or anything
He was like
that.
I don't see Rashawn. Let's go.
Exactly. So we were dancing and my head was down, and I just looked up and I saw Rashawn literally charging at me.
My heart would have dropped.
It was like that moment, how they say like your life flashed before you. My heart, like that rush of whatever that hormone is, or that whoosh, I was like, oh my God. And next thing I knew, I was up and over his shoulder. Wow. And he just ran me to like the next side of the room. And he put me down. Everybody's looking. He was like, yo, how could you do this to me? Like, all I can imagine, like I'm watching you dance with him from across the room. All I can imagine is you having sex with him. And it was just this whole, like it really bothered him just to see someone else touching me, especially in like a sexual type of way. He saw that. So it really affected him. I was like, we were just dancing. Like everybody knows that like you're a boo. Like
I'm Jamaican. This is how we dance.
And he knows that. Like he knew that.
He didn't care.
And he was like, we're leaving. I'm like, I can't because I drove.
And I don't, and you probably didn't want to.
Of course I didn't want to. Yeah. But at that point, like I knew I wasn't going to have fun. So now he's standing,
Party over.
He's standing behind me, like literally like holding me from behind because he's taller than me. And it was just like, he was like claiming his property. Do you know what I mean? And I literally just waited for the rest of my girlfriends to have fun. And then we left and he was heartbroken.
Right.
He was heartbroken. Yeah.
So let me ask you this, because, clearly like and I know this is in the book too, the time that he ended up calling you because he did fuck up.
Oh yeah.
In the relationship. So that must have really caught you off guard because you see him doing all these things from when you're young, showing you how much he's in love with you. He doesn't want anybody else around you. He's so possessive and jealous. So did that catch you completely off guard?
To say that I was thrown for a loop would be the biggest understatement. We had our problems, but our problems were rooted in his insecurity. And those are problems that I felt as though I could manage if I loved him out of it. Because I knew that once he understood that he was as amazing as he really was and that I was as in love with him as I really was, that he would eventually grow out of that. Because that's all that was. He didn't believe that he deserved me when he absolutely did. He absolutely did. So I knew that I just had to give of myself, but I don't know. I felt so bad for him at that time. So yeah, I was really caught off guard because he was so affectionate. He was so loving.
Consistent.
He was consistent. He was generous. He was thoughtful. He was more romantic than I have ever been.
He always says that.
He's the romantic one in the relationship. Right. He's the one that's going to think of off the wall things, grand things.
Oh, we see it.
You know, he's gonna he's gonna do the work.
We see Christmas.
We see it every year.
But you know, even with 12 Days of Christmas, it's not even the gifts because
it's the thoughtfulness.
I could go and buy those things.
He plans it way in advance.
He starts shopping almost a year.
Trust me, I know because I
advance.
help out sometimes.
See, you know, like he starts shopping like a year in advance. He does all of these things, and throughout our entire relationship, he would say things like, if you like it, I love it. Or I live to make you happy. Just seeing that smile on your face is all that I need. And he's never faltered in that. So while he was carrying through his indiscretion, he was still that amazing husband to me at home. And again, not that we weren't flawed, but our flaws were relatively specific in surrounding one thing. I would have never, like our friends, everyone in our life, my mother grew to absolutely adore him.
His parents love you.
His parents loved me. Like, it was wonderful. Far from perfect, but it was wonderful. I would have never thought that he even had it in him.
Right.
I couldn't even wrap my mind around the fact that like he could be attracted to somebody else, or that he could. It was hard for me to understand because he put so much into our relationship. Do you know what I mean? And then logically you think like,
when do you have time?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's that, but you're so worried about losing me. But in this situation, you're doing everything that you can to ensure that you lose me. Because I was raised by very strong parents, particularly a very strong mother. And I have always been very clear. And just in my life, you know, at the time especially, I was very black and white, like not very gray. I don't put up with anything from anyone. Not friends, not boyfriends, not husband, not my children. I'm very clear about, in my life, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And at that time, particularly, I wasn't very tolerant, and I absolutely was not a forgiving person.
Right.
If my friend messed up with me, like, we're done.
Over. Yeah.
I don't even call you to tell you that I have a problem with what you did. I just stopped talking to you.
Yeah.
And I block you. Like it's not even worth the conversation. And that's my personality. So he knew. Like, he knew what he was up against when he did that.
That's crazy because, and you know, even looking back to that time and you talking about it in the book and everything and being open and honest about it, you know, I never would have even thought that would happen. But do you feel like, because we've discussed this, you don't like being public, you didn't even really want like your picture out there?
Yeah, at the time, right.
And and at that time, it wasn't like Envy was like posting. People didn't even know. Like, some people acted like they didn't know. I remember somebody was like, oh yeah, Envy's not. I was like, yes, he's definitely married. Like, because you could Google it and see. It's not. And I had seen a press conference that you did.
Exactly. Listen, let's just be very clear. Like, I wasn't a public person, but people knew that Rashawn was married.
I knew
known.
that. We worked this serious together. I always knew that he was married.
People knew. He was on Miss Jones in the Morning for years prior. And he talked about me. He talked about the kids.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, we went through a whole public debacle with another radio show host that I refuse to mention his name.
And you did a press conference.
I did a press conference. That radio jock was fired.
Right.
I can't think of
his
the time
multi-million dollar.
Envy was married.
Yes, his multi-million dollar contract was killed. It was done because he was in violation. I mean, it was a very, very big thing. It was on 1010 Wins.
Like
it was on the news. We were in the newspapers. I was
There's
secret.
no way somebody didn't know.
Anybody that claims that I was a secret is a friggin' lunatic.
Also, if you're quote unquote dating somebody and you've never been to their house and that they've never posted a picture of you, there's no way you could really think that's like a real situation.
Yeah. Of course not.
Even if he's trying to make you believe that, so you're like, you still know, as a woman, we do we go and do our work and you gotta take a background check.
And I mean, for like what? So what now? Google isn't a thing,
right?
Like, are we just gonna play stupid?
Let me ask you: if you date somebody, do you Google them? I'm just curious.
I do. If okay, I'm not. If I don't, trust me, the moment I tell give me a second, what's their name again? And they're looking like, that's just, and it's so funny. Before I can even do it, my friends, because I'm like, well, no, because he's really nice. And no, but hold on, girl, what's his name again?
Yeah.
How you spell it?
Where does he live?
Where do they live? They'll come back with the whole background check.
Yeah.
So if I'm not doing it, trust
Somebody
and believe, one of my close friends, the second I mention a guy's name, they're like,
Same.
God forgive me.
Listen.
Every time I even consider somebody new, it's new guy net worth. Google.
Listen, even if they're not search. Even if they're not a celebrity, they checking inmate.com. Search. Listen, they checking inmate.com.
It's usually a lie.
I found a guy that I started talking to, but this was back in high school, and it was the first guy that I actually got it. My first orgasm was with this guy after my son's dad. And when I met him, we met him out at a club in Miami way back in the days. It's called 609 in Coconut Grove. And I met him there. He was just so fine, dressed in all khaki, tan khaki, Dickies. I talked to my friend about him, and like 2 days later while we was in school, she's like, bitch. I said, what? Girl, he was on inmate.com. He has this much record. I was like, he literally had just got out of prison. Like, mind you, I was a senior in high school.
Yes.
She's like, he just got out of prison.
Yes.
I'm like, how the fuck you found all that shit out? Like, listen.
I got one of those friends too.
Yes.
Yeah, that would tell you everything. Sometimes you'd be like, girl, stop telling me.
Right?
Like, I don't want to know.
So great.
Yes. So with him, like if you're in a position to take a particular interest in him, then yes, I'm sure that
You can Google it.
You can Google it. Like, let's be
How
realistic.
hard was it for you to actually come out like and be more in the, you know, like you guys have had the podcast together because you were so private before that?
Yes, I wasn't deliberately private. I am not a private person. I'm the type of person like I'll share everything because I just feel like when you share your life with people, as we do on the podcast, as we did in the book, there's a sense of community in that where you share your reality and it gives other people, particularly, you know, for us women, something to relate to. And you realize like you're not the only one. You're not the only one that bad things happen to. You're not the only one that felt that way. And it's like a sisterhood in that. So for me, being open and sharing the good and the bad is very, very important because in our day and age, you know, everything is about image. Right. And you only know about people, if you're basing it on something, a platform like social media, what they want you to perceive them to be.
Yeah. They curate their
Exactly. It's curated
existence.
and it's very particular and it's in a way manipulative. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So if you're just sitting back and taking all this in and believing it, then what does it take for, you know, a young girl to look at somebody or even a grown ass woman to be like, damn, my life ain't shit. Because look at this. This is reality. There's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with my relationship. Maybe there's something wrong with my upbringing, and it just breeds insecurity. But when you can see people for who they really are and what they really go through, you could say, okay, well, you know what? Maybe it's not great, but at least there's a sense of community here where I feel as though I'm not the only one. Right. I can relate. There's a reference point for you, you know? So for me, it's always been important to share and to be open about it. So I was never interested in social media at the time. I've never been, to this day, I've never even opened up a Facebook page. I don't even know what the Facebook homepage looks like.
You can monetize that, by the way. I just want to put that out there.
Rashawn keeps telling me that, right? Yeah, there's that. I've never been on Twitter. I've never tweeted.
On Facebook.
Like, I've never tweeted, you know what I mean? My daughter was, I don't know, maybe 11 or 12 or 13, whatever, and put me onto Instagram. So if you go to my Instagram, the very first picture is just a picture of Madison's eye. Because we were sitting on the steps in my house, and she was like, no, it's like you take a picture. She took a picture of her eye. She posted it. She showed me how to do it. And I was like, oh, that's what this thing is. I didn't even really understand or grasp social media. Meanwhile, Rashawn was on Twitter. Rashawn was on Instagram. Sidebar, all the evidence, like stuff was there. Had I known how to use it, I was just clueless. Do you know what I mean? So I wasn't deliberately
And he
private.
said he didn't like one of your friends because she was like connected in the industry.
Yeah, she was in the
And
mix.
that's what really will get you caught up.
Yes, I had met this older woman and she was in the industry. Like she had managed some people and whatnot. We had daughters the same age. My daughter and Madison were the same age. And we started hanging out. The girls went to camp together. And every week he found a reason for me to not hang out with her.
He was nervous.
Yeah, I heard this, or I think that she's this. And it was reminiscent of how he was in college, you know? Because I guess he felt like she would be the potential for me to start getting closer to the truth of what had happened.
Sheesh. Well, listen, I feel like, and I always say this, like on the Breakfast Club, and I say it in real life, but whatever decisions people make in their relationship, like, it is what it is. If you decide something happens and you want to stay, that's on you. If you decide something happens and you want to leave, because I also feel like women get like demonized for leaving and giving up too. Like, I've heard that so much. Like,
really?
Okay, all the time. People act like something's wrong with you as a woman if you don't want to stick through something. If you're not ride or die. I've definitely and you know what? Part of it might be because I work with men, and I've always worked around a lot of men, so they make it seem like
from a man's perspective, right? Absolutely,
and they feel like ride or die is important, right? Like, you know, listen, all of us have been through a lot of things in this room, and we've made decisions, and it's not a right decision or a wrong decision. It's just a personal decision.
Absolutely,
right? Yeah. You know, and so for yourself, it took a lot for you to decide to stay. And I think that's important too, because
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I didn't stay because I was a ride or die. I just want to put that out there.
Right.
Yeah, I was. Listen, that was a crazy that reason.
And listen, on the Breakfast Club, Envy was so distracted every single day at work. I was like, we would be doing interviews, we would be doing a show. He wouldn't know what was going on.
I know.
He would be on his phone the whole time. I would be like, I didn't know if the show was going to continue because he was so, and it was early on, kind of.
He was so dejected.
He was so, like, every day he wasn't doing no interviews. He was leaving. There was days he wasn't coming in at all.
Right.
You know, because he was trying to figure out, what am I going to do? He was so devastated. And, like, normally for myself, like, I think about, you know, I've been in situations, and clearly I'm not married, but, you know, I've been in situations where some things happen, a guy's cheated, and I'm like, I'm not dealing with that anymore because I know how I'm going to be. But, like, it actually made me look at things differently to see what your guy's situation was. You know what I'm saying? To see, like, how he was reacting. I actually felt bad for him. And normally I wouldn't feel bad for a guy who did the things that he did.
Yeah.
But it made me look at things differently.
Yes.
You know? So let's talk about that time period, because there are guys that really do mess up, and there are women that want to stay in their relationship and fix things, but they don't know how.
Oh, no, I didn't want to stay in my relationship and fix things. Like I said, I was very black and white. So as soon as I found out that what I had a notion of was true, and you would have to read it in the book because it is a very...
I did read it.
It's a long story.
I don't want to tell it because we need people to buy this book.
No, but it's a very interesting story that pulls at your heart from different directions. But once I found out that it was true, we were in a car. I'll tell a little bit. I realized it, and I decided that I had to confront him, but in a way that would get him to confess.
Mind bleep.
Right, because you didn't know all the details. You know,
I did. I had to absolutely mind bleep him. I had to make him think that I knew, and that I wasn't coming to him and asking him if it was true. I was basically telling him that I knew it to be true.
Giving him the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm giving you an opportunity.
We've all done that.
To have a conversation about it. You can tell me whatever you want me to know about it, or you can say nothing at all, because I know. While really I knew nothing. I just believed it to be true.
Right. You saw it on a blog.
I saw it on a blog.
And you weren't sure.
And I wasn't sure.
And your intuition
But my intuition told me that it was true. And it's that thing that you try to shoo away. You know, it's your intuition is telling you something negative that you don't want to believe, but you know damn well there's something to it. And it was nothing he was doing in the home, but I couldn't figure out in my own reality why this particular information would be on a blog.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So I confronted him. Long story short, he confessed. It was very heart-wrenching, but we were in a car in a Home Depot parking lot. I called him. I told him I was on my way home, and I was like, we need to talk. He was like, what do you mean we need to talk?
Yeah, that's
because when I say that, it doesn't mean when we're talking about what we're watching on TV after dinner tonight. You know what I mean?
Guy is like,
he was like, we need to talk. Right. I was like, just meet me at home. Now, both of us are about maybe 25 minutes away from the house. I was like, meet me at home. He's like, no, where you at right now?
Scary.
I was like, I'm on 17, about to pass the Home Depot. He's like, pull into the parking lot. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Right. I was like,
right. Let's talk about this
now. He couldn't wait the extra 12 minutes to get home. Right. I pull into a Home Depot parking lot. He pulls up. I confront him. Again, long story short, he confesses. And I pulled away from him. And I remember looking in my rearview mirror and just seeing him sitting on the curb crying. I went straight to my house. It was a few days before Christmas. My mother-in-law was there.
His mom, yep.
Yes, my mother-in-law was there, and we were decorating because we were hosting Christmas that year. And I walked right upstairs. She was standing right outside my kids' playroom. I was like, yeah, so Rashawn and I are getting a divorce.
Ooh.
And she was like, I said, yeah, there's no Christmas this year, so you could we could pack everything back up because this marriage is over. And she's
His mom was like, them bitches lying.
Pretty much. The same thing that he said to me in the car when I confronted him. Whoever told you, they're just jealous.
That's what his mama said.
So his mother said the same thing.
Mama ride or die.
Yes.
Mama was the ride or die.
Right.
God bless her. I love her to death.
That's her son.
But I understood. But you have to understand. Nobody would have believed it.
Right.
Yeah.
Nobody, our friends, our family, because he did not present himself in the world that way. And
honestly,
not to me.
I didn't believe it. Like,
exactly.
Because even me, like, I had been in the club with him. You know, we were doing the Breakfast Club.
Yes.
I had never seen him do anything.
Yes. I think he had an indiscretion. I think that he made a bad decision. I don't call it a mistake. He made a bad decision. And sidebar, a huge catalyst, a huge cause of the reason why was because of what I told him just some years earlier about faking
orgasm. I was going to ask you that.
Yes, that was
That did something to his ego.
the biggest reason, because now he had this huge hole in his ego. And
he got to prove
he was hurt,
himself.
and now he needed someone or something to validate him. You know, and when he's at home, you know, he's just Rashawn, husband and father. You know what I mean? But when he's in the streets, he's envy. You know what I mean? And it wasn't until, you know, sometime after I went out with him, I'm like, what, you got groupies? Like girls dancing seductively in front of the DJ booth trying to get your attention? Like, what?
I'm not gonna lie, like the times he's been in Miami and I've gone, like, I really don't see, like, it's literally June, him, and then if I'll come, like, me, I really don't. So I wouldn't imagine that either. Yeah.
Yes.
And then that's another thing. He's like, yeah, we going out. And then it's like 2 a.m. Laura, where you at, bro? It's 2 a.m.
Right.
So I really
June,
never really seen.
Yes.
June. Like I've never really seen, you know, women really around. One time, but it was your homegirls, I believe, that I met.
But it's because like he keeps.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, listen, I'm not saying that he was out there and he was for the streets. Like he was, you know what I mean? Like it was a situation that he got himself into. I'm not saying that it happened over a long period of time. I'm not saying that it happened with multiple women. I'm just saying that, and it could have been one woman, it could have been 52 women. For me, it didn't make a difference. It was the betrayal, it was the lies that you had to tell me to get this done.
Yeah.
Considering what we have, and what we had between us was very special. So it's particularly devastating.
Is it harder that it was public too? Like, because I feel like that's another layer. It's one thing when something happens and the whole, you know, everybody don't have to know about it. But it's a whole nother thing when people are like, yo, what, you know, what happened? People weighing in on it.
It would have carried out the same way. Whether it was public or private, nothing would have changed. But of course, it was more difficult because after he said what he said on the Breakfast Club, that public apology,
I was like, don't do it.
He seemed very remorseful.
it was a last ditch attempt for him to try to do something that he thought was a grand gesture of his love, because he had been trying for quite some time after I had found out to relinquish what we had, and it was failing. And the night before he did that, something significant had happened. Again, it's in the book, but something significant had happened, and he realized, like, oh, it's over.
Right.
Like, this isn't a bluff. And he knew it in his heart of heart, but he was trying. It's not a bluff. Like, she's already paid a divorce attorney. She's already told her mother, my parents, the kids. Like, I was preparing everybody.
And the worst part
like,
was
it was
that
over.
He had the nerve to ask June to come to you and talk to you. Come on. I don't know if June was the right person for that job.
Hey, June is a great guy.
No, June is a great guy, but June is also like, yo, you're not really leaving, yo. You're not, you know what I'm saying?
You gonna leave all of this?
That's the wrong person.
You gonna leave all of this?
That's the wrong approach.
Come on,
right now. We love you, June. But I don't know if I would call June to try to salvage nothing.
And I'm looking at him.
About it, G.
And I'm looking at him the same way that I look at people that don't know me and that don't know Rashawn that say, oh, she stayed with him for the money, right? And I'm sitting there and I remember looking at him that day when he's like, you gonna leave all of this? You know, we were in a club when he said that to me. And I was like, so you're going to compare my love and my heart to like
material,
some pounds of leather, to like some handbags, some shoes, some jewelry.
Wait, June said this?
Yeah, you gonna leave?
Damn, June.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. June wasn't it. I love you, June, but you were not the right person for the job.
Yeah, it's like
You made the person to try to talk you off the ledge.
I'm saying like
You misunderstood the assignment.
And that's actually the thought that I had in that moment. I was literally thinking to myself, like, you're gonna compare like my love, my emotions, my life to some leather.
And that's why Envy gets really sensitive.
Like when you think about it,
when
like
people try to act like Gia was like there for, because honestly, and he says this all the time and it's in the book, but you were the one that was the breadwinner at first.
Yeah.
He really did not want you to leave and go work and everything, and you were very supportive of him in his come up.
Yes.
And he's always very making sure that people know that story because y'all were together from such a young age, 16 and 17.
Yes.
And so that's why even with the Jesus and Mero situation, he was so angry.
Yeah.
About
He knows the real. He knows what really was going on versus what people see today,
Yeah, and I think that with the whole Jesus and Mero thing, I think what bothered him, I think that he felt as though he was defending me, but at the same time, what they said, what does that insinuate? And yes, I know it was poised as a joke, but we all know that all jokes are rooted in something. Do you know what I mean? And that something is what bothered him because it suggests that that's all that he's worth. That all that he's good for is providing.
Right.
And I think that was the message that that was a little disturbing.
And in this business, they do act like if a man is providing and financially making sure you're good, you got a nice house, you got the family, a little cheating is okay.
Yeah, no, not for me.
Right.
No, not for me. Because I think that as women, we do deserve it all. If we are deserving.
Now, I got to ask you this, Gia. When AJ Johnson was on The Breakfast Club, and I know you've seen this, AJ Johnson, and we asked her, like, would you want to know if Gia ever went out with somebody else during the time that y'all had a break? If anything ever happened, he said he would never want to know that. Did you see that
Who's
clip?
AJ Johnson?
She was in House Party.
Jody Mama.
from Baby Boy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, he's telling the damn truth.
Right. He does not want to know.
Him. I have asked him,
Does he wanna know?
just, you laying in bed, you having stupid conversations, and I've asked him on several occasions, so if I ever had an indiscretion, if I ever stepped out on you, would you want to know? He's like, keep it to yourself.
He does not want to know.
A lot of
He
men
was like,
do that.
I would
They get
never
this shit, but
want
they
to
can't
know.
take it. We know that.
But yeah, because
We know that.
sheesh. I mean, that was crazy because that turned into a whole conversation of like, why would you not want to? Because you guys did have a period of time when y'all were not together.
No.
Like, I mean, when you were like, it's over. And you thought,
See,
because it would have been okay for you, right? You think at that time to be like, let me go out with somebody else.
At that time, my focus was on how I was going to co-parent, how I was going to be divorced but keep Rashawn sane, because when I told him I wanted a divorce, which was that same day, he sunk to a very, very, very low place.
Right.
And I couldn't necessarily think about my feelings at that time. I was thinking about him and I was thinking about my kids. I still wanted my divorce, but I would say things like, we can co-parent. I don't hate you.
You was preparing.
I just don't
yourself.
want to be married to you. I just want to be your
That
wife
hurts
anymore.
more than if you would have said, I hate you.
I think it might have.
I think it does.
I think it might have. But like for me, I feel like women, particularly men too, but I'm talking about women, you make a lot of bad decisions because you make them with your heart. Do you know what I mean? For me, it's the head and it's the heart. And I always listen to my head before I listen to my heart. Because, your heart will be like, yeah, girl, like, forgive him. Your head is like, so should I remind you about all the the bleepish that he did to put you in this situation? The head keeps you straight. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it didn't matter if I was devastated, if I was crying my face into a pillow every night. It didn't matter how I felt. I didn't care about how I felt. I cared about what I had made up my mind to do, and I was going to do it. And you know how they say only God could come down? God literally had to come down and intervene in my relationship in a way that I couldn't chalk up to coincidence.
You were
to
like,
save
I need
my
a
marriage.
sign.
And you got that sign.
Let me tell you, that has got, honestly, that story in the book, it has to be, if not the most significant thing, one of the absolute most significant things that has ever happened to me. It's the reason why I don't regret what we went through. It was like a gift and a curse, because I benefited so much more from that point than I ever suffered because of what he did to get us to that point.
So you think your relationship is stronger now?
That's an understatement. That's an understatement.
You know, I've said this before. I feel like sometimes
it doesn't do it justice.
Things like that, when you go through stuff in a relationship, even cheating, that can make your relationship stronger if the work is done to correct the course.
Yes. There's a chapter in the book called The New Deal. And for me, it's probably... I don't want to say, I dare to say my favorite chapter, but it's a very, very important chapter that's near and dear to me. A lot of women ask, like, how did you forgive? How did he get back in your good graces? Like, how are you able to laugh about that now? Because I could laugh about it now. I don't hold anything, not a morsel in my heart because of what happened. Because you know, like if you've ever been cheated on by someone that you love, that could be like 15 years down the line, you still thinking about it, you're still harboring resentment.
Like I said, you made a left with that bitch.
Exactly. Me, I've absolutely I've been given the blessing of being able to completely let it go and move on and be in a happier place than I ever thought was even possible.
Are there ever triggers for you? Like,
not anymore.
Not anymore.
But let me be very clear. It took years. This happened about 12 years ago. When I found out, when I read that blog, it was already about 2 years old. It had already ended 2 years prior to when I found out.
Oh, okay.
So I was finding out about old stuff. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It just happened to resurface where I could like see that it happened. Do you see what I mean? But yeah, no, at the time, it took, I would say about maybe 3-4 years for me to learn, to gain wisdom, to really understand what love was, and to even more importantly, understand what forgiveness was.
I was just about to say true forgiveness.
What real forgiveness is. Because a lot of women, you get cheated on and you stay.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and you bring that shit up.
Yeah.
Of course I forgive you. I stayed, didn't I?
And
just because you stayed, in your mind, that means you forgave him. I didn't bounce, did I?
No, it's a big difference.
No.
Absolutely not.
No.
Yeah.
When you forgive, you don't forgive to relieve the other person of that burden. You forgive for yourself.
For yourself.
So you can relinquish yourself
For
of
your
that
own
burden.
sanity.
What about your parents forgiving him?
Well, here's the thing. So my father had already passed away. My father passed away when I was 19. And when this happened, my mother was probably 3 years into her battle with dementia. So she was never able to even know or understand what had happened.
So you had no one to really talk to like that. Like,
yeah, but I didn't need anyone.
Okay.
I didn't need anyone. I've always been like the type of person that if something happens, I deal with it on my own.
But y'all have friends together that you had from when you were teenagers.
We do.
Right. So what about with them? Like, what kind of advice were they giving you?
Nothing. I didn't bring this to any of my friends.
Right.
So they weren't calling you like, girl, we seen what's going on. Like, are you okay?
Rashid. See, at the time, we were being approached by different production companies to do a reality show. We were approached by Real Housewives of New Jersey. And just, producers that wanted to produce a family show. And it was like in the blogs. I don't even know how the blogs found out about that stuff. But, they find out and we were seeing like different posts and everything. So my best friend who lives in California, LA, with my other best friend, it's a couple, Sasha and Rashid. He had heard about what had happened when Rashawn apologized. And he thought that it was like fake to drum up publicity
for reality
TV. So when he called me and he was like, I heard, et cetera, and so forth. He was like, and I'm like sitting there like, no, this is crazy. I was like, oh, no, honey, it's all true. Real. It is all true. Everything that you read, it is all true. And he's like blown away. And he was the only person in my entire life of friends and family that did not support Rashawn and my relationship. He was like, walk away. He always said he's too controlling. He's too obsessive. He's too possessive. And he needs you too much. And if you were ever to leave him, I just don't know what would happen. You know, you need to consider maybe moving on or moving away slowly or what. And I was like, I would tell him like, hun, like, it's not that serious. See, Rashawn, I've never been afraid of Rashawn. I've never been like, he's never been physically abused, like nothing like that.
He would do something to himself.
He would do something to himself. Right. No, he would. It's not even before. He would never do anything to me.
But he would do something to himself.
Yes, he would do something to himself, and it's always been Rashawn's thing. Like if we got into a bad argument, or if I was now, mind you, we've never broken up a day in 27 years. I've tried, just like when I tried to divorce him.
Yeah, I don't think when you guys were going through your things that you were broken up. It just seems like you guys were having problems.
I was trying.
You wanted to break up, but it didn't happen.
But I had to be delicate with him because I was worried about his mental state.
Oh,
like Rashawn is the most responsible person I've ever known. He's never late. He shows up to work. Like
every morning. Sometimes he just never.
If he does, it's because it's something that's beyond his control. Right. Like he doesn't wake up late. He doesn't like disregard.
Right.
You know what I mean?
He's responsible.
Like he shows up to work. He pays bills on time. Like he is someone that you can really, really rely on. And at that time, I would hear it like he would not show up for work.
Yes.
Not call
Trust me, I know. I'd be like, you think he's coming in today?
Not call his boss and not call his co-host and say, hey, I'm not coming in or whatever. I would go in the room in the morning and he would just be laying there because we weren't sleeping in the same room. He was sleeping in the guest room. So I would go down the hall and I would open the door and it would be locked. I have to get a credit card and I got to break into the room. I get in there and I'm like, okay. I'm like, you're not going to work? He's like, F work. He's like, F life. I shouldn't even be here. Yeah. He was on a slippery slope, you know? So we didn't actually break up. I'm like, okay, you can stay here. Like I felt that I could kind of take care of him and just get us to a place where I got what I wanted, but that he was safe. Right. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So no, we've never actually broken up.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So.
Man, look, Gia, I appreciate you for coming on here and being so open and honest. I love hearing your perspective. Mm-hmm. You know, because
now I see why you told him to stay home. Mm-hmm. Now I see why you told him not to come.
Envy be over talking. You know what I'm saying?
We know Envy.
We all know Envy. And we also know his side of the story so many different times. Exactly. We've heard him talk about it. So it was nice to hear things from your point of view. Mm-hmm. You know, as always. And you know, I'm glad that you guys wrote this book because there's a lot of gems in here. I know y'all are doing a ton of press. Even just thinking about marriage and the importance of marriage and how do you know it's time for you to get married.
Yes.
You have a whole 25 questions about how you know that. But I think this is really helpful. Like I said, I've seen a lot of these things transpire, but I didn't know the full story. I only knew things from Envy's point of view. You know, but I've always been Team Gia.
Thank you.
As you know, at one point he was like, you're the only girl that's allowed to be on my phone for work purposes. You know, and even for yourself moving forward, right? You have access to everything. So you don't even have to,
Yeah, like if you, we are, it's kind of like we're one. Do you know what I mean? Like with his Instagram, like I'm in his Instagram, he's in my Instagram. So I could just double tap and then all of a sudden I have control of his Instagram.
So if Maxwell DMs you, he'll see
it. What's that called again? The phone up?
He calls it a phone up relationship.
Yeah, a phone up.
So we have access to each other's Instagram and to each other's email. And it's not through a sense of control or anything like that. It's just that it's completely open. You know what I mean?
Was this like that prior to that incident always? Or do you feel that?
No.
I'm not the type of person that would ever go through a man's phone.
Right.
Because if I have to do that, then I don't want to be with you.
Right.
You know, I'm not playing detective work. Right. I'm not even when I found that blog that day, I Googled looking for pictures from a photo shoot that he had just completed. And I was like, you know, it's been about 3 weeks. Like the picture should be up. So I Googled and I was looking for the magazine photos and whatnot. And when I Googled DJ Envy, this blog came up and I was like, oh, what's that? And I'd never been on that blog. So I'm like,
oh, I know the blog.
Exactly.
Up on Media Takeout.
Oh no, it wasn't Media Takeout. We're not gonna talk about that blog.
Right. Yeah, don't say it.
But yeah, it was that blog. But I've never. So no, I'm not doing anything extra. I feel like you have a cage, there's a bird in it, you should be able to leave that door open.
Right.
And if the bird flies out, then he is not for you. That bird's supposed to sit his ass right there, perched on that little little swing and be happy. And if it flies, then you're like, okay, well, I have my answer. Right. You know what I mean? So
that's awesome.
Because I always felt like Gia could do whatever she wanted in life. So I always tell Envy all the time, he's really fortunate.
Oh, thank you.
That dedication to your mom was just like that. Let me read into a little bit that I did read. It was like I felt that maybe I'm sure that probably, like you said, she was already going through dementia. But reading what you wrote, it was kind of like that helped you get through that, even though she wasn't able to be there at that moment.
Yes,
but everything that you wrote, that what she taught you and everything, it led up to you being able to get through that situation with a clear mind.
Yes,
that dedication was everything.
I am my mother's daughter.
Yeah.
We would compare your dedication to Envy's.
I was like, well, Ange, his was...
He did good.
Envy was like, he did good. Envy was like, what's up, it's DJ Envy. I'm going to give a shout out to Queens.
Shout out to Queens. Shout out to 105.1.
But you guys make sure you pick up Real Life, Real Love. You get to hear some of the most amazing, interesting stories from both points of view. And I do appreciate the fact that Envy was so transparent in it, because there's things that I never looked at. I was like, I gotta start making fun of him for some things.
Like what? Like what?
Certain things, like the dildo situation. Or even like, I know that like we joke about the fact that like he broke out of the mental hospital.
Yeah.
But but reading it in the book was so different, because when he tells us a story, he tells it in a joking manner.
Yes, he makes light of it.
Right, but when you read it, it was not light.
Yeah.
So like he'll talk about it like, I ran out, my feet hanging out the car.
Yeah, I was picturing his feet hanging out the car.
But the way he tells the story, it doesn't sound as serious as when you read it in the book of what he was going through.
Right. It was dark.
When he really did not want to live. And so he can tell it to us in a certain way, and I know that sometimes that's like a defense mechanism.
Right.
To be able to make light of something. But what Gia was having to go through, having to call the cops. I saw him that night because I was, or whatever, the next night I was having a birthday party and he was DJing and he showed up.
Okay.
And the cops were looking for him.
Yes.
And I was like,
because we had a bolo out for him. Beyond.
And you was like, what's a bolo?
Yeah. And they had came to the job and then when he didn't come to work, they came to the station, he wasn't there. But then he shows up to DJ the party. And I'm like, Envy, what are you doing? They're looking for you. But I'm like, Envy is insane.
Yeah, he was a little insane. But that was a very dark place for him, hence us, But that was the thing, when I told him that it was over, just like previous times when I told him that it was over for other reasons that were far less significant or serious, it would bring him to a place where he felt as though he didn't want to be here anymore.
Right.
It was like, if I can't have you, if we can't live life together, then I don't want to be here. And he meant that with every fiber.
I see from the things that he was doing. I'm going to be nice to him tomorrow.
Yeah.
Team Envy.
Nice of you.
Be nice to him.
And he takes you through what that feels like what got him to that point. You know what I mean? So, but we've healed from all of that.
You're having orgasms.
Yes.
Girl. Every time.
That's one of the most
every time. And make sure you wear your shirt and show it to the room.
Yes. Holds on.
Fake orgasms. All right. Well, it is lip service. Thank you so much, Gia, for coming out for the first time ever. We appreciate you.
It's been... Listen,
we've been wanting to do this.
Long time coming.
Right.
Yeah, but I think this... Listen, literally...
Yes.
Take a beat. Yes.
Take a beat.
Yes, you got that. All right, lip service, Gia Casey.